Hello everyone, thank you for dropping in on our next easy fix video. In this video we are going to be walking you through how to completely refurbish an iPhone XS Max display. Let's get started. First we are going to test the display with a battery and logic board to double check there are no imperfections in the OLED. We will then place the display on our screen extractor machine, continuing with putting small amounts of rubbing alcohol around the frame of the display. Whatever percentage of alcohol you can find, either 70 or 90%, will be okay with this procedure. Next, we are going to start with the frame removal process. First step is to remove the Face ID bracket and then carefully cut the very top of the frame with a pair of wire cutters. Then add some additional rubbing alcohol around the frame to prevent the OLED from possible damage. The alcohol will allow the adhesive on the frame to become brittle and will release, also acting as a temporary lubricant while the opening tool is carefully used underneath the frame to separate it from the OLED. Once again, we will use the wire cutters to begin the lifting process of the frame. Don't be afraid to use more alcohol during this procedure since the OLED is so fragile, any wrong movement can possibly damage it. Now we want to use extreme care to remove the frame from the rest of the display, but be sure to pull the frame down top to bottom as it can do serious damage to the OLED flex cables if not done correctly. As displayed in this video, we want to very carefully remove the rest of the frame from the OLED. As mentioned earlier, using more alcohol will allow the opening tool to safely glide across the bottom of the display. Then begin to remove the rest of the frame from the OLED, going in a top to bottom motion to ensure maximum success of this operation. Then cut off the small piece of metal connecting the speaker mesh to the digitizer and the OLED. The next step seems pretty simple, but in fact will extremely damage the OLED if done incorrectly. With an extremely thin wire, carefully place it at the top corner of the display between the digitizer and the OLED while making a left to right motion with a pressing force downwards towards the digitizer to increase the success rate of this procedure. While doing left to right motions, pull the wire from the top of the display to the bottom until you can pull the wire all the way through the OLED and digitizer with ease, or until the two pieces completely separate as shown. After we're done with this separation, we need to separate the digitizer flex cable from the OLED. To do so, place more rubbing alcohol around where the flex cable meets the OLED. With an opening tool, carefully place it underneath the soldered connector on the OLED. Then proceed to pull the cable off of the OLED left to right. After all said and done, we always want to double check our work. Even the slightest of imperfections of movement while cutting the adhesive off of the OLED can cause a failed repair. If failed, a green or purple line will appear on the OLED, and at that point the OLED is beyond repair. Always be sure to double and triple check if the display is working after any major point of this procedure. We will now go ahead and start the cleaning process of the OLED, using rubbing alcohol with a brush to gently apply a generous amount to the adhesive still on the display. Now place the display on a hot plate with a maximum temperature of 100 degrees Celsius and let sit for at least 2 to 3 minutes. We will now place the OLED on the mold specifically made for this display. Using the mold will greatly increase the success rate of this repair, as it will allow to keep an even pressure along the entire display without damaging the OLED. Use the rotating glue removal tool to remove all the softened adhesive off of the OLED. This tool can do serious damage to the OLED if done wrong. Always be sure to use 2 hands while using this tool, as it can easily get away from you if not used correctly. We will now apply more rubbing alcohol and wipe the OLED clean of any remaining adhesive that could still possibly be on the display. We will now once again check if the OLED is still completely functioning without any unwanted imperfections. Now with the working OLED, we will go ahead and take it to our purified air containment center and proceed to clean off any other leftover adhesive remnants using a clean towel and rubbing alcohol once again. Now with the perfectly clean OLED, place it into the guide for your specific display. This guide will allow for absolute precision while applying the new digitizer on the soon-to-be new display. The next step, one of the easiest parts of the entire procedure, place the entire guide with the OLED and digitizer applied into the LCD lamination machine. Leaving it in the machine at 45 degrees Celsius with 40 seconds of vacuum time and an additional 40 seconds of pressure time, which will allow the new digitizer to completely adhere to the OLED. After the machine is finished, remove the guide from the newly laminated digitizer and remove the display from the mold. Almost always, the displays will come out with a few small bubbles in them. So for absolute maximum results, we will leave the display in a vacuum chamber to remove all the remaining air bubbles between the OLED and digitizer. We will now leave the display in the vacuum chamber for exactly 11 minutes and 11 seconds. After the vacuum chamber is finished, remove the display and inspect for any bubbles. Excellent, there are no bubbles in this display. We will now proceed to solder the newly installed digitizer to the OLED so that all the touch inputs are now recognized by the device. After the soldering is complete and cleaned with alcohol, we will now test to make sure all of our work is still for a functioning display. We won't want to do all that work for nothing now. As you can see in this video, we are double checking that all the touch inputs are working correctly on the device. Looks good to go. Our final step is going to be to add a new frame onto the OLED. Now go ahead and remove all the protective tabs and plastics from the new frame and apply a generous amount of new glue to the frame to allow for maximum strength between the OLED and the frame. After firmly placing the new OLED onto the frame, we will wait about 3 to 4 hours for the glue to completely dry. After the glue is all done drying, let's do one final test to be 100% sure that the display is still functioning and we still have touch with the new digitizer. As you can see, there's no reason to use an entire device for testing because you can just use a logic board, charging cable, and battery to turn on the device. With one final test of the touch inputs, looks to be that we have another successful repair in the books for the Easy Repair team. If you enjoy watching our in-depth tutorials, please don't forget to hit the like button. It gives us more motivation to keep making these videos for you. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you know right when we post another in-depth tutorial about electronic repairs. This is Ethan here with the Easy Fix team. Thank you for watching and please stay tuned for more videos.